perverted, shameful and dirty. These are not my words. This is what the Supreme Court of India had to say about the vulgar and crass joke controversy on India's Got Latent show. The Apex Court made some very scathing observations while hearing YouTuber Ranveer Allahbadia's plea against FIRs over his distasteful comments. Let's take you through some of those. The first rap that has come in from the Supreme Court is that such language is unacceptable. The second rap, if this isn't obscenity, then what is? The third, this is a total lack of responsibility. The fourth, a total violation of rules of morality. The fifth, there's something very dirty in his mind. The sixth, why should the court give relief to him? The seventh is that a total pervert type language has been used. Eighth, words used will make parents feel ashamed. Ninth, Ranveer should be ashamed of himself. 10th, Ranveer has embarrassed his parents. And the top court has, however, allowed and granted some relief to Allahbadia with a few riders, blocking any fresh FIR against him, giving him protection from arrest, and also allowing him to approach local police for protection if required. He's also been asked to not leave the country and deposit his passport with the Thane police. He cannot do any shows as of now. Meanwhile, while hearing another case today, the Supreme Court also asked the central government to do something about obscene content on YouTube and other social media platforms. But it remains to be seen who will draw the line on obscenity and where. All right, so Supreme Court hearing the Allahbadia case has now, of course, issued the order. The order copy has been accessed by Times Now, and the relief has been granted with riders. The top court has blocked new FIRs. Allahbadia can't leave the country, as we were mentioning. He cannot air any show on YouTube as well. So that's as far as the restrictions are concerned. We've actually accessed a copy of that particular order, and that's in fact some of the important parts of the order, talking about the FIRs that have been made on the same set of allegations registered in Jaipur. The arrest of the petitioner shall remain stayed in the said FIR also. No further FIR shall be hitherto registered against the petitioner on the basis of the episode aired on the show India's Got Latent, for which the above mentioned 2 or 3 FIRs have already been registered. The petitioner shall be at liberty to approach the local police of Maharashtra and Assam for the protection of his life and liberty in the event of any threat, so as to enable him to join the investigation. The petitioner shall deposit his passport with the investigating officer of the police station, Nodal Cyber Police Thane, and shall not leave the country without prior permission of this court. The petitioner or his associates shall not air any show on YouTube or any other audio, video, visual mode of communication till further orders. Let's quickly take this up for debate.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
And joining us on the panel are Satyam Surana, complainant in the case. Karuna Nandi is a senior advocate of the Supreme Court. Kushal Mehra is author and podcaster. Ishkaran continues from debate number 1. Karuna Nandi, let me ask you what was stated by the court today, and you must have been through the observations. The first and foremost is that he says that the bench says that if this is not obscenity in India, what is? There is something dirty in his mind spread by his program. Why should the court entertain such persons? Isn't the court apt, given the kind of joke which many find absolutely tasteless and very, very poor sort of context?
Madhav, the court has said, the Supreme Court has said multiple times that what is expressed outside of the order is not something that too much emphasis should be given, to by the media and others. But what the court has said in its order, and I think you've quite rightly shown the order, is that it said that the FIR in Assam shall remain stayed, subject to the condition that the petitioner shall join an investigation as and when summoned by the IO. And they've also said that he will not be accompanied by any counsel inside the police station during the course of investigation, which in my view was not entirely unnecessary. It should just operate according to the law, according to the BNSS. And then it says that no further FIR shall be registered against the petitioner, and he shall not leave the country without prior permission of the court. He'll also be at liberty to approach the local police in Maharashtra and Assam for the protection of his life and liberty. Now, the thing is that and I think this order broadly is fine and in accordance with law, right? I think it's very important to remember that in cases like this, there is a outrage factory that kind of builds on itself. There is an increasing outrage, and then there are a number of FIRs then that are filed across the country during that peak time of outrage. And then after that, either they lose steam or nothing much happens after. The important thing to remember is that let us now take a step back. There was an Australian content creator who had said the same thing. In fact, this particular awful, obscene, I won't say obscene, but awful speech was plagiarized, right? But nobody has taken action against that Australian content creator. Why?
But that's a different jurisdiction, isn't it?
Well, actually, maybe not, because Ranveer Allahbadia said what he said in a particular part of the country. However, the FIR was registered in Assam, another FIR was registered in Jaipur. So the internet is a place that is everywhere. Right? Yeah. So there's no reason that the FIR can't be registered.
Let me bring in Ishkaran in on this. Ishkaran, if there was a similar comment, tasteless, crass comment that was made by somebody sitting in Australia, why was action not taken on that individual, given the fact that it's all available on the internet? Action can be taken in any part of the country. And also there are those who say that apologies have been issued. At the end of the day, it's not a statement that has evoked, some kind of public violence or any kind of, action in that sense. Should the matter rest there? Of course, the courts are seized of this matter and the police are investigating the matter. Ishkaran.
Madhav, I've been on this debate earlier on Times Now, and that time also I had the same view that of course what has been said is obscenity, and that is a red line which has to be drawn, because you cannot have speech which is promoting pedophilia or certain other prohibited acts. But even that time I said it's not a case of arrest. And broadly, the Supreme Court order is in those lines. The FIRs have not been stayed. He has been told to join the investigation, but the protection from arrest has been given. A person, an Australian citizen sitting in Australia, that I do not think would be permissible under Indian law, that you bring in extraterritorial jurisdiction and try to have a case against an Australian citizen in Australia for a speech he's made on some platform. Nothing to do with India at all. The other aspect which needs to come into this is the last observation of the court, which I believe will open a Pandora's box and is something we need to think about, because in a bail order, the court has ordered that you and your associates will not post further till further orders. Now, this is akin to pre-censorship. And this area we have to be very, very careful. One specific case in a bail order that coming, or does it open a box? Because you said in another case, they have also issued notice to the government that what is the way that social media content is going to be regulated. To me, the larger issue now, because Ranveer Allahbadia and Samir Raina case would die its natural death, whether the passport has been impounded, whether the passport has been submitted, you move an application, you generally get permission to travel. Daily that happens, and slowly you get your passport back also. But that last condition, I think, is what is the condition which needs to be discussed, elaborated upon, because it is, in a sense, bringing pre-censorship in, which is a very slippery slope.
All right, let me bring in Kushal Mehra on that. Kushal Mehra, you agree that bringing in pre-censorship is one of the implications of what the court has said, saying that these individuals cannot post further episodes, and also the very fact that the government has been asked to respond as to how they plan to regulate this kind of content online by the court, and perhaps another case. All of this leads to a serious question about how governments can now perhaps find a way into regulating this content, and that has all sorts of implications.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Madhav. My biggest worry, Madhav, is this. I think somewhere down the line, people don't have an understanding of how the internet works. They think they can somehow control this thing, and they think it's the Wild West. It's not. I'll give you an example of my podcast, right? It is made for 18 plus. So if you log into an account and you're not 18 and above, you cannot watch my content. And I don't even swear. I still keep it 18 and above. Just don't want kids watching political content, because I believe kids should watch cricket. I mean, that's just my opinion. So I put those guidelines on my own content. Now we are living in a scenario where It's not even an Australian who made that joke. This is an old 2000s Reddit joke that has been copied by multiple people multiple times on the internet. When we crack down on censorship, Madhav, we might be successful in cracking down on 2 or 3 Indian content creators. What we don't realize is, just look at the scenario. India's Got Latent was behind a paywall. Whether people like it or not, it was behind a paywall. It was for 18 plus people. Some random member allegedly leaked one clip and that went viral. They actually followed all the guidelines. They kept it behind a paywall. They kept it behind everything. Now, on the same time, if we think India's Got Latent is problematic, Kill Tony, which it is a rip-off of as a concept, Kill Tony is 1,000 times worse. But Kill Tony is an American show. Are you going to call Americans and put them in front of the Katghara? And if we try to censor YouTube, all Indian content creators worth their weight in gold will do is they will migrate out of India. Does that solve any problems? You can't solve this. What the government needs to realize is censorship never works. In the 90s, it was the Khalnayak song, Choli ke piche kya hai? There was a moral panic about that song. Today, there is a moral panic about this. The best way is, why aren't parents controlling what their kids watch? I just don't understand that. Like, if I have a cell phone, I have to stop my children from watching that content. I will not give them a smartphone. I will give them a flip phone. What happened to good parenting? This has gone from my parents' ability to the state being my parent. I'm sorry, I don't want the government being my parent. I already have parents.
Admitted, there are serious problems there with government getting into content regulation. And also, of course, you perhaps are right. And let me take that question across to Satyam Surana. I will take that question to him just a minute, but there is a concern. There's a concern that even this kind of content, even if it was labeled adult, is it really acceptable? Because it raises serious and fundamental questions about the role of the family as a building block of society. But let me bring in Satyam Surana on that. Satyam Surana, do you agree with Kushal when he comes out to say that these regulators put their content behind a paywall? He also comes out to say that they did their due diligence, and if you get the government into regulating content, you perhaps will see people migrating either out of the country or onto another platform. Satyam Surana.
See, Madhav, 2 points. Firstly, the content being behind a paywall is no defense to obscenity. We do not have strip clubs in India. If we put the same analogy, strip clubs operate behind paywalls, they operate in the 4 walls. But still, it will still be considered obscenity if tomorrow somebody starts a strip club. And if that logic is to be applied, we will have strip clubs on every corner of every road in India. So obscenity is not defended by being restricted under a paywall or being restrictively available. Obscenity is obscenity, and it is something which needs to be acted upon. It is a criminal act in the eyes of law, for which complaints have been filed. And secondly, coming to the point of restriction, how much you can control. See, it is impossible virtually to control every part, every section of the internet or whatever content is being created. But that simply does not defend that we stop regulating. Just because we have a lot of pornography available on websites or on dark web, or porn websites are still available through other means or VPNs, does not mean we stop making laws against pornography. When we are on a road, we have to abide by the rules of the Road Traffic Act or the Motor Vehicles Act to drive on the road. In a similar way, when we are in the field of content creation, we have to abide by some rules. And how will we get these rules? See, this is not the first time that we have landed up into such a situation. We have been in previous situations wherein online content has been subjected to social as well as judicial scrutiny. Say the Tandav series, say the series in College Romance, which was taken before the Delhi High Court, and then the Supreme Court passed an elaborate judgment in it. Say the Padmavat movie. See, we have these situations multiple times. Kunal Kamra was tried for contempt of court. Munawar Farooqi was behind the bars for a statement. Where do we draw the line? Do we take all of such disputes every time to the highest court in India?
No, there are concerns. There are concerns,
and law for once.
Yeah, there are concerns certainly, of course, and that's why we are debating this. And actually, it's caused a huge amount of outrage. And I can see both hands of Ishkaran as well as Karuna going up. I'm going to come to you, Karuna, first. Is the an answer, because as he's saying, there are contexts in other countries, other jurisdictions, local culture, etc., which perhaps are more tolerating of certain things which they might not be here in India. Is the answer then not self-censorship for such content creators? Because otherwise, we are going to lead to such, issues where courts will have to intervene and perhaps even governments. Karuna Nandi, unfortunate as it is.
There are two things I would like to make clear to Mr. Surana as well as to all the viewers. The word obscene is being thrown around very loosely, right? The word obscene has a particular meaning in normal parlance. It has a completely specific meaning under the law. Now, when we look at the case of Abhik Sarkar, the Abhik Sarkar case brought into the law essentially what is the Roth test, which is that what would a reasonable person in the particular community find to be sexually inciting, right? Find to be sexually exciting. Essentially. Earlier, the test under the Rajit Udeshi judgment was the Hicklin test. What would the most vulnerable constituency feel about the particular speech? Therefore, I would like to ask either Satyam Surana or any of the people who are outraging about this, did they find this comment to be sexually exciting? Most likely not. Most likely, they found it to be disgusting and didn't actually want to watch further, right? Which is really the answer here. Secondly, there was a point being made by my younger colleague here who was saying something about jurisdiction, right? Now, the Subramanian Swamy case, when criminal defamation was sought to be struck down and when jurisdiction was sought to be limited, said very clearly, look, there is subject matter jurisdiction when the speech is on the internet, so essentially an FIR can be filed anywhere. Right? Now, an extradition treaty may come in the way depending on what the extradition treaty is with the particular country where the person is located. And obviously, practically speaking, it's very difficult to bring someone from Australia, etc., over something as awful but as ridiculous as this. Right. Now, I think we need to be really clear here that what is happening is that people are saying that, look, I don't find it disgusting. I mean, I find it disgusting. It won't influence me. It's going to influence that other person. I want to protect that other person. Now, don't go around protecting other people, right? Essentially, if there are children, children should not be watching this sort of nonsense in any case. And the gentleman before me Kushal Mehra made a good point about it being behind a paywall.
Yeah, but the question is also, I mean, of course, you perhaps have a point when people say it doesn't impact me, it impacts someone else in society. But perhaps everyone has a right to express their opinion. But Ishkaran, quickly, your response to what she has said.
Yeah. Madhav, I was part of the Subramanian Swamy case, which defamation was challenged. That's an entirely different context where if you make a speech in one part of India and a police in another part of India registers an FIR or does an investigation, what is the contours versus a foreigner, not an Indian citizen, making a speech on foreign soil. Completely different contours. But let me come to the specific of this, because Kushal made a very interesting point. What is a show in US Kill Bill or some Kill Tony or something? What will be the impact? See, there are obviously going to be people who are not Indians, but some content is accessible in India in a language which majority of Indians do not speak, made by people who are not a big influencer or a big influence on the Indian society, and it's impossible to censor all these speeches made all over the world. But every country has these speech restriction laws. Europe is worse. They are jailing people, putting people into jail when you question somebody's sex, when you say there are two genders, when you talk about certain, if you speak something, if you name your child based on what Hitler did or what Nazism. So there are various laws in every country in the world. You will have no place where you can say people have lost their jobs.
Absolutely. I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, Ishkaran, because we're completely out of time. I think the larger point that you're making is that even freedom of expression, while everyone is forced free speech, and certainly we are for it here, the point is that it does come with certain reasonable restrictions. In this case, it appears to have crossed a certain line. What action will the courts, will the police take from here on remains to be seen. I'd like to thank all our panelists for joining us, Karuna Nandi, Kushal Mehra, Satyam Surana and Ishkaran Bhandari. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.